Welcome to Dreamtale Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is The Mystery of the Laundry. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. The mystery of the laundry begins now. And when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. The Mystery of the Laundry. Emma Rodriguez had always been good at solving puzzles, but the mystery at Sunny Wash Laundromat was unlike anything she had ever encountered before. It was her first week working the evening shift at the small neighborhood laundromat, and already she had noticed something very strange happening every single night. The laundromat was located on Maple Street, squeezed between Chen's Bakery and Rosewood Florists in the heart of the small college town of Millbrook. Chen, the cheerful owner of both the bakery and the laundromat, had hired Emma to help manage the evening hours while she focused on her early morning baking schedule. "Just keep an eye on things," Mrs. Chen had said with her warm smile during Emma's interview. "Most people are very good about taking care of their laundry, but sometimes they forget things. If clothes are left overnight, just put them in the lost and found basket." Emma had nodded, thinking it would be an easy job that would give her time to study for her psychology classes at Millbrook Community College. She needed the money to help support herself and send some home to her grandmother in Puerto Rico, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. But on her very first night, something unusual happened that made her forget all about her textbooks. Around 11 p.m., just as Emma was preparing to close the laundromat, she noticed that someone had left a load of wet clothes in one of the washing machines. Following Mrs. Chen's instructions, she moved the clothes to a dryer and made a note to put them in the lost and found if no one claimed them by morning. When she arrived the next evening, however, Emma discovered something remarkable. The forgotten clothes were no longer in the dryer where she had left them. Instead, they were sitting on the folding table, perfectly clean, completely dry, and folded with an incredible precision that would have impressed even the most meticulous hotel housekeeper. Each item had been folded with incredible care. The t-shirts were creased with mathematical precision. The jeans were folded into perfect rectangles, and even the socks were paired and rolled into neat little bundles. Someone had clearly spent considerable time and effort making sure every piece of clothing looked absolutely perfect. Emma looked around the empty laundromat, confused. The front door was still locked, just as she had left it the night before. The back door, which led to a small alley behind the building, was also securely locked. All the windows were closed and showed no signs of being disturbed. Yet somehow, someone had entered the building, completed a stranger's laundry, and disappeared without leaving any trace. She checked the security camera that Mrs. Chen had installed above the front counter, but the old system only recorded during business hours and automatically shut off when the laundromat was closed for the night. Maybe Mrs. Chen came in early this morning, Emma thought to herself, trying to find a logical explanation for what had happened. But when she asked Mrs. Chen about it the next day, the older woman looked just as puzzled as Emma felt. "I haven't been in the laundromat since yesterday afternoon," Mrs. Chen said, wiping flour from her hands with her apron. "Are you sure you didn't fold them yourself and just forget about it?" Emma was certain she hadn't folded the clothes. She had a very good memory, and she definitely would have remembered spending time carefully folding a stranger's laundry. That evening, Emma decided to pay closer attention to everything that happened in the laundromat. She brought her psychology textbook with her, but found herself watching the customers more carefully than usual, wondering if one of them might be the mysterious laundry folder. The evening customers were mostly college students like herself, along with a few working professionals who couldn't do their laundry during regular daytime hours. There was Jake, a friendly engineering student who always brought way too many clothes and never had enough quarters. There was Mrs. Patterson, a nurse who worked double shifts at the hospital and always looked exhausted when she came in around 9 p.m. And there was Mr. Yamada, a quiet, elderly Japanese man who came in every Tuesday and Thursday evening like clockwork. Emma watched all of them carefully, but no one seemed particularly interested in other people's laundry. They all minded their own business, read books or magazines while they waited, and took their own clothes when they were finished. But sure enough, that night, another mysterious incident occurred. A young mother named Lisa had brought in several loads of children's clothes, but had to leave suddenly when her babysitter called with an emergency. She promised to return the next day to finish her laundry, leaving behind a dryer full of tiny t-shirts, pajamas, and children's socks. Emma made another note and prepared to put the clothes in the lost and found basket in the morning. But once again, when she arrived the next evening, the children's clothes had been perfectly folded and arranged on the folding table. The tiny shirts were folded with the same precise technique as the previous night's clothes, and the small socks were paired and rolled with incredible attention to detail. This time, Emma was determined to solve the mystery. It was during her third night of investigation that Emma met her most important ally in solving the case. As she was organizing the detergent supplies behind the counter, she heard a soft meowing sound coming from near the back door. When she investigated, she found a small calico cat sitting patiently by the door, looking up at her with intelligent green eyes. "Hello there," Emma said softly, crouching down to get a better look at the cat. "Are you lost?" The cat meowed again and rubbed against Emma's outstretched hand. She was clearly friendly and well cared for, with a shiny coat and bright, alert eyes. "I wonder if you belong to someone in the neighborhood," Emma mused, gently scratching behind the cat's ears. When she asked Mrs. Chen about the cat the next morning, the baker smiled and nodded. "Oh, that's Mitzi," she said. "She's been hanging around the laundromat for about 6 months now. I think she used to belong to old Mrs. Foster, who lived in the apartment above the flower shop, but Mrs. Foster moved to a nursing home last winter. No one has the heart to take Mitzi to the animal shelter, so the whole neighborhood kind of looks after her. She seems very smart," Emma observed. "Oh, she is," Mrs. Chen agreed. "Sometimes I think that cat notices things that people miss. She has a way of watching everything that goes on around here." That evening, Emma decided to let Mitzi stay inside the laundromat while she worked. The cat seemed to enjoy the warm, clean environment, and Emma found her presence comforting. As the evening progressed, Emma noticed that Mitzi had an unusual habit of positioning herself near the large front window where she could observe the entire street. The cat would sit very still for long periods, watching the people who walked by with the intensity of a detective conducting surveillance. "You're quite the little observer, aren't you?" Emma said to Mitzi around 10 p.m. as she was preparing to close up for the night. Mitzi meowed in response and padded over to the back door, where she sat down and stared at it intently. "What is it, girl?" Emma asked, following the cat to the back door. As she approached the door, Emma heard the faint sound of footsteps in the alley behind the building. Someone was walking very slowly and quietly, as if they were trying not to be heard. Emma's heart began to beat faster. Could this be her mysterious laundry folder? She turned off the main lights in the laundromat and peered carefully through the small window in the back door. The alley was dimly lit by a single streetlight, but she could make out the figure of an elderly man walking slowly along the back of the buildings. The man stalked directly behind the laundromat and seemed to be examining the back door. Emma held her breath, wondering if he was planning to break in. But after a few moments, the man continued walking and disappeared around the corner. "That was strange," Emma whispered to Mitzi, who had been watching the entire scene with rapt attention. The next morning, Emma decided to do some detective work in the neighborhood. She started by visiting the other shops on Maple Street to see if anyone had noticed anything unusual happening at night. Her first stop was Rosewood Florists, the flower shop next door to the laundromat. The owner, Mrs. Garcia, was a friendly woman in her 50s who had been running the shop for over 20 years. "Oh yes, I've noticed some strange things lately," Mrs. Garcia said when Emma asked if she had seen anyone around the laundromat after hours. "Sometimes, when I'm working late on wedding arrangements, I see lights moving around in your building. But Mrs. Chen told me she hired you to work evenings, so I assumed it was just you." "What kind of lights?" Emma asked. "Just small ones, like from a flashlight, or maybe a phone. They move around very slowly, like someone is being very careful not to disturb anything." Emma's next stop was Chen's Bakery, where Mrs. Chen was already hard at work preparing bread for the lunch rush. "Have you ever seen anyone hanging around the laundromat at night?" Emma asked. "Mrs.?" Chen paused in her kneading and thought for a moment. You know, now that you mention it, I have seen Mr. Yamada walking in the alley behind the shop sometimes when I arrive early in the morning. But he's such a nice, quiet man. I always assumed he was just taking an early morning walk. Mr. Yamada? Emma remembered the elderly Japanese man who came in every Tuesday and Thursday evening. Do you know much about him? Not really, Mrs. Chen admitted. He's been coming to the laundromat for about a year now, ever since he moved into the senior apartments on Oak Street. He always pays exact change and never causes any trouble. He seems very lonely, though. I don't think I've ever seen him talking to anyone else. Emma thanked Mrs. Chen and continued her investigation by visiting Patterson's Used Books, the small bookstore across the street from the laundromat. Mr. Patterson, the elderly owner of the bookstore, was organizing a display of mystery novels when Emma walked in. "Ah, you're the young lady who works at the laundromat," he said with a friendly smile. "How are you enjoying the job?" "It's been interesting," Emma said diplomatically. "I was wondering if you've noticed anything unusual happening over there at night." Mr. Patterson adjusted his glasses and looked thoughtful. "Well, I do stay late sometimes to catch up on my inventory, and I have noticed someone moving around in there after closing time. I always assumed it was Mrs. Chen, or perhaps you, doing some cleaning or maintenance work. Did you ever get a good look at who it was?" "Not really, just shadows moving around. But I did notice that whoever it is seems to be very careful and methodical about whatever they're doing. The lights move in very systematic patterns, like someone who knows exactly what they're doing." Emma left the bookstore with more questions than answers. It seemed clear that someone was indeed entering the laundromat after hours, but she still had no idea how they were getting in or why they were folding other people's laundry. That evening, Emma decided to set up a more sophisticated surveillance operation. She positioned herself behind the counter where she couldn't be seen from outside and asked Mitzi to keep watch by the window. Around 11:30 p.m., just as Emma was beginning to think that nothing would happen that night, Mitzi suddenly became very alert. The cat's ears perked up, and she stared intently at the back door. Emma heard the same soft footsteps in the alley that she had noticed the night before. This time, however, the footsteps stopped directly behind the laundromat and didn't continue on. Emma crept carefully to the back door and peered through the small window. She could see the shadowy figure of an elderly man standing in the alley, but she couldn't make out his face in the dim light. To her amazement, the man pulled out what appeared to be a key and quietly unlocked the back door. Emma's mind raced. How could he have a key? Only Mrs. Chen and Emma herself were supposed to have keys to the laundromat. The man entered the building very quietly, moving with the careful precision of someone who had done this many times before. Emma could hear him moving around in the main area of the laundromat, but she couldn't see exactly what he was doing from her hiding place behind the counter. For the next 20 minutes, Emma listened to the sounds of someone working steadily and methodically. She could hear the soft rustling of fabric and the gentle sound of clothes being folded and arranged. Finally, the sounds stopped, and Emma heard the man walking quietly toward the back door. She heard the door close softly and the sound of it being locked from the outside. Emma waited several more minutes before emerging from her hiding place. When she looked around the laundromat, she found exactly what she had expected: a load of clothes that had been left in one of the dryers was now perfectly folded and arranged on the folding table. But this time, she had seen enough to identify her mysterious visitor. The next evening, Emma was ready with a plan. Instead of hiding behind the counter, she positioned herself in the small office area where she could see the entire main floor of the laundromat while remaining out of sight. She didn't have to wait long. At exactly 11:20 p.m., she heard the familiar footsteps in the alley, followed by the quiet sound of the back door being unlocked. Mr. Yamada entered the laundromat, carrying a small flashlight and moving with the careful grace of someone much younger than his apparent age. Emma watched as he surveyed the room, checking each of the machines to see if any clothes had been left behind. When he found a load of forgotten laundry in one of the dryers, his entire demeanor changed. He approached the machine with an almost reverent attitude, carefully removing each piece of clothing and examining it as if it were precious. Emma watched in fascination as Mr. Yamada began to fold the clothes with the same meticulous precision she had observed in his previous work. But what struck her most was the expression on his face as he worked. There was something deeply peaceful and almost joyful about the way he handled each piece of clothing, as if the act of folding laundry brought him genuine happiness. As he worked, Mr. Yamada began to hum softly to himself. It was a gentle, melancholy tune that sounded like a traditional Japanese lullaby. Emma found herself touched by the tenderness in his voice and the obvious care he put into his work. When he finished folding the clothes, Mr. Yamada arranged them carefully on the folding table, making sure each stack was perfectly aligned. Then he stood back and looked at his work with obvious satisfaction. But instead of leaving immediately, Mr. Yamada did something that surprised Emma even more. He began to clean the already spotless laundromat, wiping down the machines and folding tables with a cloth he had brought with him. He emptied the lint traps in all the dryers, swept the floor, and even cleaned the mirrors on the wall. It was clear that Mr. Yamada wasn't just folding forgotten laundry out of some random impulse. He was taking care of the laundromat and its customers with the same attention and love that someone might give to their own home. When he finished his cleaning routine, Mr. Yamada stood quietly in the center of the laundromat for several minutes, just looking around with a peaceful expression on his face. Then he carefully locked the back door behind him and disappeared into the night. Emma sat in the dark office for a long time after Mr. Yamada left, thinking about what she had witnessed. She realized that she was dealing with something much more complex and touching than simple mischief or even theft. The next day, Emma decided to learn more about Mr. Yamada. before deciding what to do about her discovery. She started by asking Mrs. Chen if she knew anything about his background. Mr. Yamada moved here about a year ago, Mrs. Chen told her. I think he came from California after his wife died. Someone at the senior center mentioned that he had been taking care of her for several years before she passed away. Does he have any family here in Millbrook? I don't think so. He seems to be completely alone. I've tried to be friendly with him, but he's very quiet and keeps to himself. I think he's still grieving for his wife. Emma's next stop was the Millbrook Senior Center, where she hoped to learn more about Mr. Yamada's situation. The director, a kind woman named Ms. Rodriguez, was initially hesitant to discuss individual residents, but when Emma explained that she was trying to help Mr. Yamada, she became more willing to share general information. Mr. Yamada is one of our quieter residents, Ms. Rodriguez said. He comes to our programs occasionally, but he doesn't really socialize with the other seniors. I know he moved here from Los Angeles after his wife passed away. They had been married for over 50 years. Does he have any hobbies or interests? He mentioned once that he and his wife used to run a small dry cleaning business together. I think he misses having something useful to do with his hands. A lot of our seniors struggle with feeling useless after they retire or lose their spouses. Emma left the senior center with a much clearer understanding of Mr. Yamada's situation. He wasn't breaking into the laundromat to cause trouble or to steal anything. He was a lonely, grieving widower who found comfort and purpose in taking care of other people's laundry, just as he had done with his wife for so many years. But Emma still faced a difficult decision. Even though Mr. Yamada's intentions were good, he was still technically breaking and entering. She couldn't just ignore what she had discovered, but she also didn't want to get a kind, lonely old man in trouble with the police. That evening, Emma made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Mr. Yamada or reporting him to Mrs. Chen, Emma decided to wait for him in the laundromat. When he arrived at his usual time and unlocked the back door, he found Emma sitting at the folding table with Mitzi in her lap. "Good evening, Mr. Yamada," Emma said gently. The elderly man froze in the doorway, clearly shocked to find someone waiting for him. For a moment, Emma thought he might turn and run, but instead, he slowly closed the door behind him and walked into the laundromat. "I suppose you're going to call the police," he said quietly, his voice carrying a slight Japanese accent. "No," Emma said. "I'm not going to call anyone, but I would like to talk to you, if that's okay." Mr. Yamada looked surprised by her response. He stood uncertainly near the door, as if he was still considering whether to flee. "How long have you known?" he asked. "I've been watching for several nights," Emma admitted. "I was trying to solve the mystery of who was folding the forgotten laundry." "Are you going to tell Mrs. Chen?" Emma considered this question carefully. "That depends on what you tell me. Why are you doing this, Mr. Yamada?" The elderly man was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with whether to explain himself. Finally, he walked over to one of the chairs near the folding table and sat down heavily. "My wife, Hanako, and I owned a dry cleaning shop in Los Angeles for 38 years, he began slowly. "Every day, we would take care of people's clothes together. She was so good at it. She could fold a shirt better than anyone I ever knew. She said that taking care of people's clothes was a way of taking care of the people themselves. Mr. Yamada's voice became softer as he continued. When Hanako got sick, I had to sell the shop to pay for her medical care. For the last 3 years of her life, I took care of her at home. I cooked for her, helped her dress, did all the laundry. It was the only way I knew how to show her how much I loved her. Dema felt tears welling up in her eyes as she listened to Mr. Yamada's story. After she died, I moved here to Millbrook because I couldn't bear to stay in Los Angeles without her. But I felt so useless, so empty. What to do with myself? How did you get a key to the laundromat? Emma asked gently. Mr. Yamada looked embarrassed. Mrs. Chen dropped her keys in the parking lot one day about 6 months ago. I found them and was going to return them to her, but I noticed that one of them was for the back door of the laundromat. I had the key copied before I gave them back to her. And you started coming here at night? At first, I just wanted to be in a place that reminded me of the shop that Hanako and I used to run together. But then I started noticing that people would sometimes forget their laundry, and it would sit there, all wrinkled and neglected. It made me sad to see clothes being treated that way. Mr. Yamada looked directly at Emma for the first time since he had started talking. I know what I'm doing is wrong. I know I shouldn't be here. But when I fold those clothes, when I take care of them, the way Hanako taught me, I feel like I'm useful again. I feel like I'm honoring her memory. Emma was deeply moved by Mr. Yamada's explanation. She could see the pain and loneliness in his eyes, but she could also see the genuine care and love that motivated his actions. Mr. Yamada, she said softly, what you're doing isn't wrong. It's beautiful, but you don't have to do it in secret. What do you mean? I mean that there might be a better way for you to help people with their laundry. A way that doesn't involve sneaking around at night. Emma spent the next hour talking with Mr. Yamada about various possibilities. She learned that he was not only skilled at folding and cleaning clothes, but that he also knew how to do basic repairs and alterations. What if we talked to Mrs. Chen about hiring you to help out here officially? Emma suggested. There are always people who need help folding large loads, or who would pay someone to do their laundry for them. Mr. Yamada looked skeptical. I don't think Mrs. Chen wants to do that. Chen would want to hire an old man who has been breaking into her business. Let me talk to her, Emma said. I think she'll understand once she hears your story. The next morning, Emma had a long conversation with Mrs. Chen about Mr. Yamada's situation. As Emma had hoped, the kind-hearted baker was more concerned about Mr. Yamada's loneliness than she was about his unauthorized entry into the laundromat. That poor man, Mrs. Chen said when Emma finished explaining what had happened. I had no idea he was going through such a difficult time. He's really skilled at laundry and alterations, Emma said, and he obviously cares about doing good work. You know, I've been thinking about offering some additional services here at the laundromat, Mrs. Chen mused. A lot of my bakery customers have asked if I know anyone who does alterations or professional laundry folding. Maybe this is exactly what both Mr. Yamada and the business need. That evening, Emma and Mrs. Chen waited in the laundromat for Mr. Yamada to arrive. When he unlocked the back door and found both women sitting at the folding table, he looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Please don't run away, Mr. Yamada," Mrs. Chen said kindly. "Emma has told me everything, and I'd like to make you a proposition." It took some convincing, but eventually, Mr. Yamada agreed to listen to Mrs. Chen's offer. She wanted to hire him part-time to provide laundry and alteration services at the laundromat. He would have his own key, his own workspace, and a small but steady income. "But I broke into your business," Mr. Yamada protested. "Why would you want to hire me?" "Because," Mrs. Chen said with a warm smile, "anyone who cares enough about other people to fold their laundry for free is exactly the kind of person I want working for me." The transformation in Mr. Yamada was almost immediate. Once he had official permission to be in the laundromat, he threw himself into his new job with enthusiasm and dedication. He arrived every evening at 6 p.m. and worked until closing time, helping customers with large loads, providing alteration services, and maintaining the machines and facilities with meticulous care. Emma was amazed at how much more efficient and pleasant the laundromat became. With Mr. Yamada's help, customers began to specifically request his services, and word spread throughout the neighborhood about the skilled craftsman who could make old clothes look like new again. But more importantly, Mr. Yamada began to come out of his shell socially. He started chatting with regular customers, sharing stories about his life with Hanako, and offering helpful tips about garment care. Emma could see that having a purpose and feeling useful again had given him a new lease on life. One evening, about 2 months after Mr. Yamada had officially joined the laundromat team, Emma was surprised to see him teaching a small group of college students how to properly fold fitted sheets. "The secret," he was explaining patiently, "is to understand the shape of the sheet and work with it, not against it. My wife taught me that you have to treat each piece of fabric with respect." Emma smiled as she watched the students hanging on every word of his instruction. Mr. Yamada had found a way to honor his wife's memory, while also building new relationships and helping other people. Later that evening, as they were closing up the laundromat together, Mr. Yamada approached Emma with a small wrapped package. "I wanted to give you this," he said shyly. "It's just a small token of my appreciation for everything you've done." Emma unwrapped the package to find a beautiful origami crane made from delicate rice paper. "Hanako taught me how to make these," Mr. Yamada explained. "In Japanese culture, cranes represent peace and good fortune. I wanted you to have one because you brought both of those things into my life." Emma felt tears coming to her eyes as she carefully held the delicate paper crane. "Thank you, Mr. Yamada. This means more to me than you know." "Please call me Hiroshi," he said with a smile. "We're friends now." As Emma looked around the laundromat that evening, she reflected on how much everything had changed since she had first discovered the mystery of the folded laundry. What had started as a puzzling problem had become a beautiful story of human connection and community. Mr. Yamada, Hiroshi, had found a new purpose and a new family among the customers and staff of Sunny Wash Laundromat. Mrs. Chen had gained a valuable employee and a deeper understanding of the importance of compassion in business. And Emma had learned that sometimes the most important mysteries aren't about finding out who did something wrong, but about understanding why people do the things they do, and finding ways to help them do those things better. Even Mitzi seemed to approve of the new arrangement. The calico cat had officially been adopted as the laundromat's mascot, and she spent her days supervising operations from her favorite perch on top of the folding table. On quiet evenings, when there were few customers and the work was done, Emma, Hiroshi, and Mitzi would sit together in the warm, clean-smelling laundromat, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company. Sometimes Hiroshi would hum the same gentle Japanese lullaby that Emma had heard him singing that first night when she was watching him in secret. But now, instead of being a lonely song sung in darkness, it had become a peaceful melody shared among friends in the light. Emma realized that this was what she had been studying about in her psychology classes: the human need for purpose, connection, and community. She had witnessed firsthand how powerful it could be when people found ways to care for each other, even in the smallest and most ordinary circumstances. The mystery of the laundry had been solved, but in its place, something much more valuable had been discovered: the understanding that everyone has something important to contribute, and that the simplest acts of kindness can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. As Emma locked up the laundromat on her last night before graduating and moving on to a 4-year university, she knew that the lessons she had learned from Hiroshi and the experience of solving the mystery would stay with her for the rest of her life. She had come to the laundromat thinking she would just be washing and drying clothes. Instead, she had learned about the power of human compassion, the importance of looking beyond surface appearances, and the beautiful ways that people can take care of each other. The mystery of the laundry had taught her that sometimes the most profound discoveries come not from solving puzzles, but from understanding the stories behind them. And sometimes the best way to solve a mystery is not to catch the culprit, but to help them find a better way to do what they were already doing out of love.